right now we still have stores occupied throughout the country, and we've met with representatives of PwC this morning who have told us that we are now engaged in an insolvency situation with Game in Ireland, which means for us, the workers, we now have to go away and look for statutory redundancy from the government. And at this point, we don't feel that that's really fair. You know, we were employed by a UK company, and now they've just kind of packed their bags and left, and it's now fallen to the Irish state to have to actually now fit the bill for that.
There are a number of deputies across a variety of political opinion, which is very, very important, supporting the game workers across the 14 stores in the state, and indeed in the north of Ireland and elsewhere, that are directly affected by this game company decision. I think that credit must go to the game workers themselves for the stand that they have taken, occupying the various stores. It shows a willingness to make a stand and to make a case not only on their own behalf, but recognising that more and more employers are dumping workers and not facing up to the responsibilities. I mean, after all, there is a huge investment in time, effort and energy on the part of this workforce right across the state in building up the viability of this company and contributing to its considerable profits over the years. These workers have earned rights, and this company must face up to that and must ensure that workers are given their due entitlements, and that's what.
So Brian Stanley, can you tell me what the bill you've published this morning is about?
Well, we've published this bill this morning, and what we're doing is we're calling for the repeal of the existing legislation that was brought in December. This bill, what we're looking for people to do is to back this bill. We're going to run a campaign over the next 3 months, calling on community groups, trade unions, and indeed other political parties and members of the Dáil and Shannon to back our bill. What we'll be hoping for is that members of the opposition, obviously in the first case, but perhaps even members of the Labour Party, will back this bill to repeal the legislation. It's clear at this stage that the household charge thing has been a farce. It's clear that it's not working. I heard Labour Party members accusing Sinn Féin of telling people not to pay. Obviously under the heat of pressure, they've got confused about what people are actually saying. Sinn Féin members haven't called on anybody not to pay because we don't need to. People are making up their own minds, regardless of what independents or Sinn Féin or anybody else says. The public are making up their own mind to whether they want to pay or not. And when we stand here this morning, there's 75% of the population who have not yet even registered. So, you know, this bill is in trouble. The government have made a bags of it. They need to go back to the drawing board, and we believe they need to repeal it.
And what are you going to replace it with in terms of revenue raising?
Well, what we would replace it with in the first instance is the 166 million that this government took out of the local government fund, which was used to compensate for the black hole created by the bank bailouts and the promissory notes and other wastes of taxpayers' money that have been going on. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say to you is this, is that Sinn Féin put forward a comprehensive pre-budget submission, and in that comprehensive pre-budget submission we set out a whole suite of revenue raising measures, but also cost saving measures such as reduction in public sector salaries, to putting a cap on those of 100,000. That measure alone, had Fine Gael and Labour chose to bring in that, it would have saved the taxpayer 265 million. So we're talking about 166 million here, David. Here was the opportunity to save 260, and they didn't do that. They could have also brought in a wealth tax, a 1% wealth tax, which is very modest, and you keep talking in recent days about other countries, other European countries, and what happens in other European countries. Well, if you look at other European countries that have wealth taxes, and a 1% wealth tax is very modest by European standards, and the wealth tax we were proposing would have brought in 800 million. So, you know, you can bring in figures far in excess of what this will do without penalising people, because what's happened here is that the public have been hit in the last 5 austerity budgets. On this occasion, it's the first time that the government, or it's the first time that the people have had a choice over whether to pay it or not. In the previous 5 budgets, the money has been taken out of their pockets. On this occasion, the public have to put their hands in their own pocket and hand it over to Phil Hogan and to the Labour Party and Fine Gael, but they've obviously made a decision that they're not going to do that. And, you know, I've heard Phil Hogan again on the radio this morning talking about this has been used to fund local services. The crisis that we have at the moment, and the crisis that we're going to have in local government, hasn't been caused by people refusing to pay. The crisis has been caused by this government taking the 166 million out of the local government fund. That's where this crisis started.
think it proves what we've been saying for a long time, that there's scope for manoeuvre and movement on the promissory notes. But of course today's deal doesn't involve any write-down, it's simply kicking the debt down the road.
Can I say that I have no intention of setting a date for the lifting of the embargo, and not helped by you in this chamber talking about doom and gloom, catastrophe and disaster about the befall people, upsetting people who are awaiting cancer treatment, and upsetting people who are pregnant and awaiting the birth of their child, which should be a joyous event, which has a certain degree of anxiety always associated with it, but should never have additional anxiety added to it by scaremongering that you did engage in this House on more than one occasion.
Thank you, Minister. Brief Deputy.
I'm totally, quite appropriate to say to you, I'm totally sick of your balderdash, and that's all that you ever employ. You're a big bombast, here, and you're no different over there. The fact of the matter is, you finished up your contribution in the Health Committee last week by saying, I am here always to be accountable and I'm quite open to accept the voices from opposition. The one thing you're not able to take is what you are quite prepared to give here over your years in opposition. You're an absolute double-sided individual. And I'm telling you now, telling you can take any interpretation you like of it. The fact of the matter is that the figures that I have cited are figures from the HSE service plan itself. They have clearly indicated what will be required further in this year. You're indicating here that you're not in a position to even project what might happen in terms of further staff exodus before the end of this year. That is a statement of acceptance of your failure to oversee the health services.
Upward-only rent system, the system that prevails in this state, is a serious competitive disadvantage for the state, and it also means that businesses are going out of business. We have ghost estates in Ireland, but now we have ghost high streets. 50,000 jobs have been lost over the last 4 years in the retail sector, and another 30,000 jobs are in major threat. The system that prevails is very, very bad for jobs, and indeed a lot of international retailers are pulling out of the Irish market due to the fact that a major component is that rents are too high. Rents in this state are 100% higher than the European average. Grafton Street is the second dearest street in Europe, the fifth dearest street in the whole world, and every other street in Ireland is a formula of Grafton Street. And what we're simply saying to the government is we need to bring about a system where rents are reduced to their market value so that businesses can actually function and that people can maintain their jobs. This legislation allows for a judge to review an existing upward-only rent review clause to bring it down to its level. It can, a business itself or a tenant or a landlord can apply for this review. So it's open to both sides of the argument, and it seeks to find a fair rent.
The economy has collapsed. The rents are still boom time rents, far too high for the level of business that people are doing, both in shops, offices and factories. And we're trying to get the government, via the Sinn Féin legislation, to allow rents to fall to where they should be, the market rent.
We have leases as tenants of the state with upward-only rent conditions in them. We also have other issues and conditions on our rents that make them totally unbankable, and in the current economic climate it's impossible to stay in business, and as a result of the upward-only rent, high rents we're paying in Kittybegs, I'm actually been forced to close down my business.
At Easter time it's important that we remember our patriot dead and wear an Easter lily. So I'd strongly encourage each and every person in the state to attend their local Easter commemoration and remember our local and national patriots who died in the cause of Irish freedom.